I'm not excited until I'm kicking the door down and running through all guns blazing. So I'll probably be excited and jumping and chomping at the bit on the start line.
Welcome back to the World Extreme Medicine Podcast. This is the second part of a two-part episode where we speak with Dan Richards on the Race Across America. Dan Richards is a friend of Wem's, and he is cycling the Race Across America as part of the Blesma team. So the Limbless Veterans is a British charity that helps all serving and ex-service men and women who have lost limbs whilst in the military. So Dan lost his right arm and shoulder and part of his neck in a motorcycle incident back in May of 2009. He's gone on to navigate the highs and lows of rehabilitating and adapted his life for the better. So he's found himself having a passion for elite cycling and has ridden in the Invictus Games amongst other high-performance events. So in this podcast, we speak to him about the Race Across America, about his impending race on this 3,000-mile one-stage event, how much sleep and or riding he's going to do as part of the team, and his preparation for the event. So please do enjoy. This is the second part of a two-part episode where we're interviewing Dan Richards on the Race Across America. So as we said before, the Race Across America is a transcontinental race, 3,000 miles from West Coast to East Coast, all done in one stage. So Dan is joining us. He's not a stranger to the WEM podcasts. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Hello, thank you, Owen. Thanks for having me. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to connect. So Dan, at the moment you are in Oceanside, I believe, which is in the west coast of America, just above San Diego, just below LA, and you are riding for the Blesma team. So Dan, could you just unpack what the Blesma team's about, and indeed where you are and what you're just about to embark on?
Yeah, cool. So Blesma in itself is a military charity. Blesma stands for the British Limbless Ex-Servicemen Association. It looks after people from the military, limb loss of use of limbs, so spinal cord injuries, loss of eyesight, loss of hearing. And the Blesma team, the entire team is made up of Blesma members. So Blesma calls its beneficiaries members. So everyone from the 8 cyclists and all the support crew are all Blesma members. And Blesma put this together. So RAM has always been a goal for Blesma. It was never about being the quickest, never about being the fastest. It was about members supporting members to get across a massive obstacle. And Race Across America is billed as the world's toughest bicycle race. Like you said at the beginning, its distance is comparable to the Tour de France. However, unlike the Tour de France, there are no rest days. There's no stages. Like the Race Across America is one stage. It's you against the clock. So the clock starts here in Oceanside, and they turn it off in Annapolis in Maryland, and you've got the cut-off is 9 days. So yeah, and I think the Blesma team themselves. So I'll break down the team for you. Sorry. So there's 8 members. We've got 2 upper limbs, so myself and Will. We've got 2 hand cyclists with spinal cord injuries. We've got Luke and Alex. Sorry. And then the rest are made up of lower leg amputees. We've got Grant, John, Matt, and Simon. So we've all been as a cycling team together since the beginning, since 2019 when we put it together. So yeah.
So Dan, just looking at this 3,000-mile race, could you maybe speak to the physical and mental preparation you've just had to put in as a team and as an individual for such a race?
Yeah, so we've all trained individually. Any team's made up of individuals, isn't it? It's so we've all trained individually. We've had training weekends where we've all met up and stuff, but they've more. I looked at those training weekends myself as where you can look at how people are doing, like through the training, what you need to work on, and so on. So it's kind of a good opportunity to kind of get everyone together, go out for a ride, see how everyone is, and so on. And that's kind of what the training weekends have been. Me personally, outside of those training weekends, cycling is a massive part of my life anyway. For me, cycling is quite very high up on my list of priorities. Before RAM and everything, it's even just during the week. If I was training for nothing, like cycling for me comes first. Like if I've got meetings in the morning, well, I'll go and join the 5 a.m. club and I'll go out before the meeting starts, sort of thing. But training for RAM, so we had 2 cancellations. So we were meant to go in 2020. That obviously got canned because of the pandemic. 2021 we were going to go for, but due to travel restrictions, that was also canned. But that's a unanimous team decision. So during those 2 cancellations, I stopped training and went to maintaining. So I didn't want to be peaking like a year before I was going to be going to do this. So it's just been a case of maintaining during those last 2 years, and then 8 to 6 months out, or 6 to 8 months out, is when I started training. So I don't have a coach. I've never had a coach. I just bought a Training Peaks subscription. Bought a coach's training plan. I think it was Simon Says Cycling. I think it was. It was the program that I bought, and I just did it. It's 3 months. I did it back to back. When the weather got better, I just went out and put that training to practice, and it's been quite good. And so I've been training 5 days a week, 2 rest days, which are Thursday and Sundays, and those training sessions, if they weren't rest weeks, they were it was an hour and a quarter to an hour and a half, and if they were outdoors, 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours. Then I recently, in the run up to coming out to California, coming out to America, I found a little 75k route and just tried to break 2 hours of doing it. So it's kind of what I've been doing. So yeah, I've not found time. I've made time to train and cycle, but that's no different to how I operate my cycling lifestyle, if you like, if you want to call it hashtag cycling lifestyle. That's kind of how I operate it.
So Dan, riders normally complete it in the elite riders complete it in 5 to 6 days. The cutoff is, I think you said, is 9 days. What are you and the team aspirationally going to complete it in? What's the sort of aspirational time frame?
I think the goal really, the fundamental main goal is to get across safely as a team. I think we could probably do it in about 8 days. 8 days and some change, I reckon.
8 days. So, and that's 8 days of cycling as a team. So, what's the cadence of change within the team there, Dan? So, would it be that you're on the bike for half an hour at a time, an hour at a time, in between other team members? So, if there's 6 team members, what would that look like on a daily basis?
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, I'm identified as a pretty good cyclist, a strong cyclist amongst the team. So I've taken that responsibility, and it is a responsibility. I feel it's quite humbling as well. I've had a lot of the team coming to me for advice on bikes and other bits and pieces in my limited knowledge, which I thought I had, evidently not. But so I've taken that responsibility. I've not taken it lightly. So I've trained, if it comes to it, to do extra turns, to do and so have some of the other cyclists as well. Yeah, I think it depends on the terrain as well. I mean, if you're going to do 30-minute pulls, at say a tempo cadence, a tempo effort, once you start hitting the mountains, that's going to come right down. And I was reading and listening to some people chatting about RAM. We went into Oceanside the other day, and you can lose quite a lot of time just getting out of the California range because it's so mountainous. But once you get down into Kansas, it's just flat for like the best part of 1,000 miles, and it's so that's probably where you'll make that time back up. But it's kind of hard to say, really. It's I mean, the team's working on 9-hour rotations. Again, that will probably change. That will ebb and flow as we go across. So it's kind of hard to say, oh, we're going to be doing this for this long, because once you start hitting the mountains, 30 minutes might become 10 minutes or 5 minutes, depending on how fatigued the team are as we get across.
So looking at your nutrition and the nutritional need across the race, what's your perspective on sort of hydration and nutrition, Dan? What's your strategy if indeed, you've thrashed one out already?
So we're quite fortunate. We've been sponsored by Science and Sport, and they've provided us with their entire range of their better fuel, the entire of their better fuel range. We've been using it in the run up to coming out as well, and it's very good. But I think hydration wise, just drink. I mean, personally, I don't really look into hydration. I just drink. I just drink as much as I can. Well, much as I can is a bit of an exaggeration, but if I'm not doing nothing, I'm sipping water. If I'm cycling and I'm sipping water. I don't want to be getting thirsty on a bike. Because if I'm thirsty, I'm already dehydrated. So it's just managing that.
And are you carrying electrolytes with you, or rehydration salts, just to try and avoid cramps and a deficit in electrolytes when you're in the sort of hot and dry terrains?
Yeah, so like I said, we've been sponsored by Science and Sport. So we've got a supply of electrolytes and stuff that just tip in the water and stuff, and but it's just other things like when you're eating, throw some salt in your dinner, whatever you're eating. It's I think it's things like that. I mean, I've never cycled in the desert before, but it's kind of it's just about managing it's about managing yourself, and I think that's where the team comes down to be made up of individuals. Like, they know their bodies best, so they know what they need to do when they need to do it. But then also, it's the rest of the team keeping an eye on each other as well. So yeah.
I think that's fundamental, actually, that element of self-care, Dan, that you mentioned, and then team care, and then extending outwards from there. But looking at the distance, so 3,000 miles, just to what you were saying, you've never cycled in the desert before, but you know, 3,000 miles. Have you ever done any endurance race over 3,000 miles prior to this?
Do you know what? No, this will be a first for me. I think the furthest I've ever gone, and you'll probably laugh at this, the furthest I've ever gone is London to Brighton and back to London again. It's about 100 miles.
So what's the succinct difference in your mind through the longevity of a race like this? We were just talking offline about sort of sparing your legs, or indeed sparing your power or your endurance. Would you are you fully prepared to? You said you're quite flexible with the different types of terrains, and you might adjust the time you're on a bike. Are you have you got a strategy about how you're going to sort of last, or indeed cover each other's weaknesses off over 3,000 miles?
Do you know what I think? How I fueled for that. Like I just said, that 100-mile thing I did a little while ago. I managed myself through that, and I think really I'm just going to amplify it. So if that's what I did for 100 miles, then I'll just increase what I'm going to be doing. But then, it boils down to other things like nutrition and so on. So that the things that people don't really think about when they look at getting into sport in general. I could go out down the road, and I did when I first got here. I was down Burger King eating dirty burgers and stuff and bagels and whatnot, which is all well and good. But I got to a point where I can't keep eating this anymore. So it's just a case of like eating whole foods and as best as I can, and fruit and veg intake. I think I'm quite specific on my carb intake as well. So the last 6 8 months, I've been tracking my food, using my Fitness Pal app, which I found really quite interesting. So I've got a good idea of what I need to do as an individual to fuel myself getting across, America.
Have you got a strategy for sleep, Dan, as a team? How much sleep you can get a night, or indeed as of a day?
So we're in an 8-man team. That team's split into 2 pods of 4, and each pod of 4 works on a 9-hour rotation. Again, that will probably ebb and flow depending on the terrain. But I mean, my routine really is once I get off for my 9 hour, 9 hours old, however many hours it's going to be. Literally, it's all in my head now. Sort the bike out, sort the washing out, eat, clean, go to sleep. And the quicker I can get that done, the more sleep I'll have. And sleep is fundamentally important, isn't it?
So looking at the adaptations to the bike, Dan, could you just maybe run listeners through what adaptations you do have on the bike for one-handed cycling? I know you've trialed and ridden this bike in the UK for quite a while before coming out to America. Could you just run us through any adaptations and how used you are to the setup?
Yeah, sure. So I've got my right arm and shoulders gone. I ride with a prosthetic shoulder cap, if you like. That's purely for aesthetics and I suppose a little bit of protection. But on the bike itself, I've got it's wrapped into the bar tape on the left-hand side. It's called a problem solver. Essentially, in layman's terms, it's a cable splitter. So there's one cable going from the lever into the problem solver cable splitter, and then 2 come out. And how it works is as I pull the brakes, it pulls the back brake fractionally quicker than the front. So I get kind of equalish braking performance. And then my gears, so I'm using Shimano Di2, and that's set up for what's called synchro shift. Essentially what that does is it determines, based on where the chain is on the cogs at the back, do you know what? I'm overcomplicating this. Essentially, it's like driving a semi-automatic car. So
That makes sense. So essentially, it's doing some of the work for you, which makes sense. Dan, could you speak to the support crew that you've got with you? We just spoke offline about the fact that some of them haven't trained or there's been minimal training, and how essential it is to have that sequencing, have that familiarity, and indeed have the mental model of how it's going to look. And you did a practice circuit the other day. Could you maybe run listeners through the support team and how they're going to synchronize into your performance?
Yeah, sure. So I think focusing on the support crew, any support crew in any event, I think they are absolutely fundamentally key to anything you're doing. As a cyclist, I've got the easy job. I've got to get on my bike, ride it, get off, when they tell me to, and then get back on it a bit further down the road. And that's all I've got to do, within the rules of RAM. But they've not only making sure that the cyclist that they're following is okay. They've got to read the maps. They've got to drive, navigating, reading maps, and so on. They've got to make sure that they're within the rules, that they're going the right way. That there's a level of communication. So they are fundamentally key to us 8 cyclists getting across to the other side of the country. But yeah, obviously over the 2 years that we've been kind of treading water, due to various reasons, health issues, family reasons, and so on, and other things taking sort of priorities. We've had a few changes with the support crew themselves. So we've got some people that have, bearing in mind they volunteered for this as well. So it's they've taken time out of their lives to come and do this. But some have joined. I think the most recent one joined, I think 2 weeks before we came out, and so it's had to learn quite fast. And yeah, you said we spoke offline. We went out and did the first 23 miles yesterday. As a cyclist, I really enjoyed it. I was quite impressed with my performance that I put out for that 23-mile part. Um, but yeah, I think there was a couple of things that need to be ironed out. Certainly with communication and so on. But I think that 23-mile practice that we did yesterday, and indeed the week that we've been here before the race starts, it's the perfect time to iron these little issues out and so on. And rather than find out what these issues are on the day, we see them, identify them, and as a team, kind of work together to get it, to get those things ironed out. So we go across, like a well-oiled machine, or as good as. And I think that's what's key about us as a team, is we're all ex-military, so we all know what a good working team functions like, and it's just finding that rhythm and getting back into it. And we are a great little team. There's a lot of banter going around. There's a lot of support going around, and everyone's egging each other on. It's really nice to see.
So that was going to be my next question, actually, around what the mood is like and what the sort of environment's like at the moment. Is it quite positive, and is everyone kind of on the same page? It sounds like they are, actually. Sounds like everyone's really up for this race.
Yeah, sure. Everyone's up for it. I mean, we have all, even as cyclists, we've all asked to do this. It's not no one's put a gun to our head and say, "What, you're doing this?" And we've had 2 years. It's not like we haven't found out last week that we're doing Race Across America. It's we've all known for the last 2 years this is what we're doing. It's the world's toughest bicycle race. Well, I need to. It's easy for me to say, I've done this, and this. I don't have kids. I don't have kids. So, I have a full-time job and whatnot, and but I've worked from home since March, so I've had the luxury of time as well, without any kind of external hindrances. But everyone's got their own motivations for wanting to do this. Some are obviously anxious to get started. Some are a little bit nervous of what they're taking on. I don't know what it is. I haven't got that yet. Even the lead up to it, I've not been. Well, I can't wait to start. I'm really nervous and so on. I'm one of these people, I guess, that I kind of got a pretty good idea what I'm letting myself in for. But I'm one of these people that I'm not excited until I'm kicking the door down and running through all guns blazing. So I'll probably be excited and jumping and chomping at the bit on the start line. I think that in itself has allowed me to remain quite cool and calm and just get on with whatever I'm doing. And I'm really not focusing on getting to Annapolis at the other end. That's 3,000 miles away. That's up to 9 days away. My focus is here and now. And if and it's just, I'm well aware that I sound very cliche, but I live and die by this. But I focus on now. My goal is to the end of the day. So whatever I do today, tomorrow will look after itself. And because what I've done today will make tomorrow one task less to do, one less thing to think about. Do you know what I mean?
I do, actually, and it's a really useful way to think when you have got, you can break things into little micro stages or indeed micro tasks, so you don't have to be faced with the enormity. And I think it's a great way to do it, just chipping away at things one thing at once, especially over such a long race and such a long kind of protracted event. But Dan, just as we're coming into land on the conversation, have you any sort of final thoughts for people that might be considering RAM in the future, so the Race Across America in the future? What would your advice be to them?
Do you know what? If you're thinking about it and you're scared by it, absolutely do it, because if it doesn't scare you, it ain't big enough. And I think outside of your comfort zone will always be, no matter what it is, the best place to be. Because you're never going to grow by being comfortable. You need some friction in life. You need some things that you're going to doubt yourself. But if your internal voice is loud enough, you will excel in whatever it is you want to do. So, I've wanted to do. RAM's been a goal for me since I finished the Invictus Games. It was like, the Invictus Games was a goal that I set, which came 2 years of my life. I did that, and I was like, right, what's the next thing? Well, RAM looks quite good. Let's go for that. And the opportunity came around, and so I've thrown myself into RAM like I did with the Invictus Games, and it's was paid off, isn't it? So yeah.
So Dan, just as we finish off, is there anywhere that people can follow your progress or indeed monitor you across the race and or follow you on social media? Is there any way people can sort of monitor how you're doing?
Yeah, so people follow what I'm doing personally. I use Instagram mainly, so I'm at the One Armed Wonder. But if you want to track the team, if you go to ramrace.org and find the live tracking thing, you can find all about RAM out there as well. If you want to find out about Blesma, they've got social media pages and they've got a website as well. So yeah, just type Blesma into Google and you'll find their website and so on. And yeah, they've obviously got bits on the RAM team as well. So there's lots of stuff out there about us. But yeah, if people want to follow me, yeah, find me at the One Armed Wonder. I've got a YouTube channel as well. I put videos on and whatnot. It's just exactly the same. The One Armed Wonder. I'm taking that name. Yeah.
Dan, listen, that's fantastic, and I just wish you all the best from WEM. We'll be with you. I'll be tracking your progress, and we'll be catching up with you after the race. But all the best, mate, and thanks so much for the last piece of time.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the World Extreme Medicine podcast, please subscribe, like, and share. And if you want to meet lots of other risk-taking, rule-bending, and inspirational people, then you need to be in Edinburgh on the 19th to the 21st of November for this year's conference. Tickets are on sale now. Go to extrememedicineexpo.com to find out more.